The unthinkable has happened. General Motors, the iconic pillar of American manufacturing, has pulled the plug on U.S. production. In a move that has blindsided workers, economists, and political leaders alike, GM's CEO, Mary Barra, announced the company will cease production operations across several plants in the United States. This decision doesn't just mark the closure of facilities. It signals the unraveling of an industrial legacy that once defined the American dream. The vehicles that once rolled out of Michigan and Ohio assembly lines will now be built overseas. This announcement has sent tremors across the industrial landscape. Thousands of American workers are now facing unemployment, and communities that relied on GM's presence are preparing for economic devastation. Factories that once buzzed with life are going silent. What does this mean for the future of American industry? Can the US afford to lose a manufacturing giant like GM within its borders? Share your thoughts in the comments. And before we continue, make sure to subscribe to the African Web and hit the bell icon so you never miss an important breakdown like this. President Trump's imposition of tariffs on imported steel, aluminum, and automotive parts was intended to protect US manufacturers. But the outcome has been more complex than expected. These tariffs significantly increased production costs for automakers like GM. Key materials became more expensive, and the ripple effects across GM's supply chain began to tighten the financial noose. Suppliers began to raise prices, delays mounted, and sourcing from alternative vendors often led to inefficiencies. Even the simplest components saw price surges. GM, already battling a fast-evolving electric vehicle market, found itself financially squeezed. Ironically, the very policies meant to help American manufacturers ended up placing them at a disadvantage on the global stage. Other nations, particularly in Asia, offered cheaper labor, more favorable trade conditions, and fewer regulatory hurdles. GM's global competitiveness began to wane, and the writing on the wall became clear. Something drastic had to change. US automakers, once global powerhouses, are now stuck between economic idealism and market realities. Faced with unsustainable costs and an increasingly hostile production environment at home, GM made a decision that was both strategic and controversial. Rather than sink under mounting expenses, the automaker opted for a survival strategy, shuttering key US plants and shifting manufacturing abroad. This isn't a decision driven purely by profit. It's about adapting to a changing economic landscape. With the rise of electric vehicles, artificial intelligence in manufacturing, and stricter environmental standards, GM is trying to reinvent itself. The company is realigning toward markets where it can remain competitive, invest in future tech, and protect its long-term viability. While many criticize the move as abandoning American workers, GM sees it as necessary to avoid collapse. Executives argue that without bold restructuring, GM would face long-term decline. It's a gamble for sustainability, not just profitability, and it reflects broader trends affecting all traditional automakers worldwide. Unfortunately, the human toll is devastating. Entire communities that once revolved around GM plants are now facing an uncertain future. Thousands of factory workers, many of whom have spent decades with the company, are suddenly jobless. Towns built around these plants, places where local diners, shops, and schools thrived off the business GM brought, are beginning to feel the economic shock. Families who counted on generational employment at GM are now scrambling to find alternatives. Real estate markets in these areas are crashing. School districts are losing funding. The social fabric of entire regions is unraveling. And for many, there's no clear path forward. Emotional distress, mental health concerns, and community-wide anxiety are rising. The collapse of one company's presence has triggered a domino effect, shaking local institutions that once felt untouchable. For many, this is more than a layoff. It's a cultural and economic identity crisis. This situation lays bare the growing tension between globalization and protectionism. While President Trump pushes a nationalist agenda focused on bringing manufacturing back to American soil, multinational corporations like GM are pulled in the opposite direction. Lower costs and better margins overseas are simply too attractive to ignore. Countries like Mexico, China, and South Korea are the new beneficiaries of American industrial retreat. Plants once based in Michigan or Ohio are being replaced by facilities in Guadalajara or Guangzhou. This stark contrast highlights the difficult truth. Protectionist policies may appeal to patriotic sentiment, but they rarely align with the economic realities of a hyper-connected world. The political blowback has been swift and intense. Trump, known for publicly calling out companies, did not hold back his criticism of GM. His reaction, a mixture of anger and disbelief, reflects a deeper frustration that even his administration's aggressive tactics couldn't keep companies loyal to American soil. Lawmakers across party lines have weighed in, some blaming corporate greed, others blaming flawed policy. The auto industry is watching closely. Ford, Chrysler, and even foreign automakers with US plants are re-evaluating their strategies. If GM, the largest American automaker, can't make domestic production work, what hope do others have? The shockwaves from this move may ripple throughout the entire industry. GM's decision is more than a business move. It's a reflection of broader systemic issues in the US economy. Stock markets reacted immediately, with shares in automotive and steel industries experiencing volatility. Investors are becoming wary of American-based manufacturing stocks, which are increasingly seen as unstable and politically risky. Supply chains are being reshaped, with ripple effects in logistics, warehousing, and parts manufacturing. Venture capital is turning away from traditional industries and focusing more heavily on digital and automated solutions. America's industrial blueprint is being rewritten, often without the consent of the very people it affects the most. This raises a pressing question. What is the future of American manufacturing? Is it possible to reconcile nationalist economic policy with the efficiency demands of globalization? Many experts argue that innovation, not isolationism, is the key. The US must invest in advanced technologies, green energy manufacturing, and education systems that prepare workers for the next industrial revolution. If companies like GM are to stay, the environment must support long-term sustainability, not just short-term protection. Policy reform, corporate responsibility, and public investment must align to rebuild a competitive manufacturing sector. Additionally, a modern industrial policy, one that incentivizes innovation and balances global trade realities, is essential to keep American manufacturing relevant in the 21st century. GM's decision to shut down US production marks the end of an era. It serves as a cautionary tale about the fragility of industrial dominance in a globalized economy. As America reckons with the consequences, one thing is clear: slogans won't save jobs, and tariffs won't stop the tide of change. Only a deep, structural transformation can. So, what do you think? Is GM's move a betrayal of American workers or a necessary evolution in a brutal global market? Should Trump have done more, or is the system itself broken? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you found this breakdown insightful, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the African Web, and turn on notifications for more in-depth stories that matter to Africa and the world.